All right, what's up? What's up, everybody? Happy Happy Monday. So I wanted to do a live today on something that I was messing around with this week, or weekend. I'm sorry, but I'm curious. I've been for those of you who've been following me for a while. I've been on I want to say an animal-based diet, not necessarily a carnivore, just because as I've had several different gut issues in the past that I've always looked to heal, and I've just noticed that the more plants I eat, the worse I feel. But um, I've I've also have just noticed that not only can plants cause some gut issues for many people, but they also can trigger all types of inflammatory responses from autoimmune conditions and these things. And so I wanted to show this video as proof and testament that, if you're minimizing the plants that you eat or being very strategic with the plants that make you feel good. I'm not trying to be dogmatic and say don't eat plants at all, because look, I'm having some coffee right now, and there's certain plants that I do still keep in my diet and I like, but I try and be very strategic with them, and very intentional with them, and only use them if they're actually working and giving me some type of benefit from it. But I'm not having plants in the usual diet like most people just because your doctor says to eat vegetables because it's good for you. Um, I think that's a challenge today when you're dealing with conventional medicine, and even in the functional medicine space. There's still a lot of doctors that are pushing the bandwagon of you need fiber in your diet, lots of it, and you need to eat the rainbow of vegetables. You want to eat all the colors and all the different colors of plants that you can possibly have on your plate. I don't know if that's true, and so I'm challenging that notion, as are many people in this space as well. By no means am I a trailblazer there, but I'm following the lead of other people that have gone before me and are having success with this type of way of eating. So let's talk about the framework of what's an animal-based diet. So an animal-based diet is a carnivore-ish diet where you're minimizing plants, and you're, for the most part, eating meat. A lot of meat and fat is the bulk of the diet, right? You probably want to get, as just a general rule of range, you probably want to get about 1 gram of protein per body per pound, um, that you weigh, right? So um, that's kind of a general start. You want to have lots of fat, right? It doesn't have to technically be quote unquote animal sources, but more so, I like to follow a saturated fat framework where the majority of the fat that I'm taking in is saturated. So you're looking at sources of ghee, which I like because butter I don't do well with since I'm sensitive to dairy. Um, Tallow, which is one of my favorites. Coconut oil, whether it's just extra virgin or even MCT, because I'm on the bulletproof train and I love to have either coffee or matcha with some MCT oil. Keeps my energy levels pretty high and get me feeling pretty good. And then you want to look at the least toxic plants to eat. And what are those? Generally, you're looking at fruit. As a general carbohydrate, those are probably the most easiest form of carbohydrate to digest and absorb the nutrients, in your body, because they're simple sugars and and they have very little fiber. It's not like a complex starch like roots and tubers are. Um, and then honey as another carbohydrate source, or maple syrup. You can experiment with both. I really like honey, as a carbohydrate. And so I was curious. So I'm like, all right, can I really get the nutrients that I want with my way of eating? Because there's many books that will advertise and tell you if you go on a carnivore diet, if you eat this, and this, you'll get all your nutrients. But I wanted to see for myself based on what does a regular day look like for me. I know a lot of people have asked me, what do you eat in a day? How many calories do you get? What do your macros look like? Look, I really don't count calories. I really don't look at macros, but for the purpose of this experiment, I wanted to actually do this. So yesterday, um, was Sunday, and yesterday was a feast day for me. I just came off a 2 day fast on Friday and Saturday. I broke that fast with some high intensity exercise, had a good meal in the late afternoon after breaking my fast. But then Sunday was really the feast day, and it ended up only being one meal. My body's just used to that for now. It's something that works. I do have coffee and tea throughout the day, but I don't feel the need to eat more than that. And so I've always wondered, am I getting enough calories on this way of eating? So let's see what the math shows. So I'm going to share my screen here. So if you look at my screen, this is kind of what I ate yesterday. And again, this was just from one meal. So as you can see, I had over 3,000 calories with just one meal. That does include my bulletproof coffee, which is rich. And again, I typically have the full serving. Yesterday, I only had half a serving of it because that's what I wanted. But you know, I had about 3,000 calories. As you can see, I got way more than the gram of protein that I need. I got plenty of carbohydrates and plenty of fat. So it's pretty much yesterday was more of a high protein and moderate carb, moderate fat type diet. Is this the usual for me? I would say eating once a day is the usual for me, especially during work weeks, just because there's a lot going on and slowing down to eat just slows me down. But as far as macros, again, I don't really count. There's some days where I'm craving carbs and I eat more of them. There's other days where I'm not and I eat less of them. And I just really do my best to just try and let my body dictate and tell me what it wants, and I'll just give it that. So I really don't count. I think yesterday I ate a lot more protein than I normally do in a day just because I was really craving a lot of protein yesterday. And I ended up having like 6 eggs. As you can see here, I had 6 eggs yesterday. I had 4 slices of bacon from White Oak Pastures, the sugar-free bacon, which is amazing. We had half a teaspoon of tallow that we cooked the eggs in. We had some wild smoked salmon, just a couple strips of them. We had cod liver oil, which is a supplement that I do take. As you can see, I had some full spectrum CBD oil. I had some beef liver capsules. I had bone matrix, which is essentially just calcium because I don't eat lots of leafy greens. If you're not eating leafy greens, it's going to be hard to get calcium in your diet. And so what a lot of people don't know is you can get calcium, though, from eating bones, from eating animal bones. And so I supplement with bone marrow, since getting bones and eating bones is quite difficult in today's world, or can be. I had some pineapple, lots of salt, sparkling water, some extra virgin olive oil. I don't really know exactly if it was a tablespoon. I'm just guessing based on what I poured on the avocado and the salmon. Could have been a little bit more. Some lime juice, some apple cider vinegar, and some trace minerals. And that's what I had. That consisted of 3,000 calories. You can see my carbs. Now let's look at minerals. Let's look at vitamins and minerals. Am I getting everything that I need? And if you want to follow an animal-based diet, what are things you should be aware of? What are things you might want to be a little bit cautious of? Things like that. So let's get into it. Forget about my macros. We already went over that. Let's look at vitamins. Let's start with vitamins first. Let's do that. And as you can see I want to talk about lipids too. I had, it says I way crushed my target for omega-3s and didn't get enough omega-6s. Again, I'm not a huge fan of omega-6s. I think most people today have a really high omega-3 to 6 ratio, omega-6 to 3 ratio, I'm sorry. And I believe that is one of the causes of metabolic dysfunction and disease. And it's something that with modern diet, it is a big problem. So I'm not concerned here. I'm not concerned with the saturated fat here either. I think saturated fat's great. If you look at my protein, it's concerned because it says I got too much protein. Again, that's not something that I'm concerned about, especially on an animal-based diet. It's important that you're eating the entire animal, which I do, right? So I'm getting bone broth or collagen in my diet to balance my amino acids. Again, these are not all the amino acids, but as you can see, I'm way over the target for getting them. So when you're eating this way, you're going to get plenty of protein. You're going to be satiated. You're going to build plenty of muscle, and you don't have to worry about these things. These are big concerns with vegans and vegetarians that I think it's very hard to get this amount of protein and the complete amino acid profile in your diet. And I also think that when you're vegan or vegetarian, not only are you lacking the amino acids, but another thing that's not factored into these calculations is that these plants have protein inhibitors, right? Like phytic acid, oxalates. What's another one? Can't think of the other anti-nutrient right now off the top of my mind. But these things prevent you from actually absorbing the protein and some of the micronutrients as well. Now, who's to know how much of it you absorb or not? I don't know, but it is a real factor, and it is something you have to consider. So no issues here with lipids, no issues with protein, no issues with the macros, right? As you can see. Now, it is concerned that I'm not meeting my fiber target. Again, I think this is plenty of fiber. I don't think you need. I'm not concerned about my fiber intake. You hear some ridiculous studies of hunter gatherers having 100 grams of fiber a day. I think that's total bullshit. I don't think they were eating anywhere near that amount of fiber. And you can look at some of my previous Facebook lives to see to talk about why I think that and how I think about those things. But I'm not concerned about fiber. I think that especially people that have gut issues, fiber is very, very problematic. I mean, I have found the less fiber I have, the better I feel, the less bloating and gas that I have, and the more energy that I have. So again, if this is something that you deal with, let this video serve as permission to try and experiment with having less fiber, because most doctors are just not going to even give you the permission to do that. They're going to think that you're going to die if you don't have fiber. And coincidentally, they're also recommending fiber to people that have gut issues, and they're making them worse. And doctors just don't know what to do. They're not trained and they're not looking at the studies, but fiber does not solve your gut issues. And especially if you're constipated, I mean, not constipated, if you're having diarrhea and stuff like that, fiber is probably going to make your issues worse. And depending on the type of fiber you're having, if you're constipated, it can also make it worse, right? If you're having lots of insoluble fiber, like from grains and legumes and things like that, which most conventional doctors are going to tell you that it's absolutely required to have in your diet, which I think is bullshit. They're going to give you these things that's going to cause even more problems. So now we got that. So now let's look at vitamins. So as you can see, I got all my B's with the exception of folate. Didn't get enough, probably didn't get enough folate in yesterday. However, had I had a little bit more organs, which is something that I'm still learning and still trying to incorporate more of, being more conscious to eat more organs, I definitely would have got the folate. So, when you are going an animal-based diet, you really want to make sure organs are included, because organs are the most nutrient-dense foods in the world, and they will have all that. So, as you can see here, the sources for folate are mostly plant foods, with the exception of liver. And there's other organs, I believe, besides liver that also have folate. So liver is important to get all your folate means. As you can see, my vitamin A, got plenty of vitamin A. Some will worry about vitamin A toxicity. Maybe that's another podcast for a different day or a different live, but not concerned about vitamin A toxicity. Vitamin D. As you can see here, I got plenty of it, again, because I had fish eggs and I had egg yolks and I had cod liver oil and things like that. And they're filled with vitamin D. Didn't get as much vitamin E. One thing, I tend to definitely have more than 1 tablespoon of olive oil. Perhaps if I would have had another one, I would have met my requirements. But also, olive oil is not an animal food, but I'm okay with olive oil. I don't really have any issues with it. If you're sourcing it, you really want to make sure it's sourced from a good place and it's not mixed with other vegetable oils, because that is a problem with olive oil. It can still have canola or soybean or some other bad seed oil in it, and they are going to tell you it's 100% olive oil, and it's not. Also a reason why I'm very hesitant whenever I go out to a restaurant to even order olive oil. If you ask your cook or your chef, the waiter, I'm sorry, they're not going to know. That's the reality. They're not going to know what the hell's in the oil, and they're going to tell you whatever you want to hear. So I do tend to travel with a lot of my oils when I go out to eat for this reason, because I don't want seed oils. And seed oils are, I think, one of the root causes of all the chronic diseases and metabolic dysfunction we're seeing today. And on top of that, seed oils are way worse than sugar. For the most part, like if I eat sugar today, it's going to be gone from my bloodstream tomorrow. But if you have seed oils today, those seed oils can stick in your cell membrane for years. They just don't go away that fast. And that's a big, big, big problem. A lot of my biohacking clients who I do omega-6 to 3 panels to see what their ratios are, most of them are not optimal. And that's because we've been eating seed oils for so many years. Like, even if you've been on a great diet for the last year, it doesn't mean that that ratio is just going to get better. I mean, it will get better, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be optimal. Like, it really takes time to fix that. And we'll see. I'm going to actually run my omega-6 to 3 panel within the next month or so. And that's probably something I'll do a live on and kind of go over my blood work and see what are things that I'm doing well and see things that I really need to work on. Now, vitamin K is another one, which for the most part, you're getting mostly from plant foods. So, I honestly, I tolerate leafy greens pretty well. It's more of the fibrous stuff that gets me in trouble, like the asparagus and the Brussels sprouts and things like that. But I can have kale, I can have spinach, I can have chard, I can have bok choy and things like that. And avocados, relatively with good issues. It doesn't really cause a lot of issues. So, that's probably a vitamin that I probably want to get a little bit more of. And maybe that's a plant food that I do want to incorporate just a little bit more in my diet. However, to compensate for that, one thing that's not even counted for here on the vitamin section is I think vitamin K2 is even more important than vitamin K. And that's something that's not really discussed, especially in conventional circles. And again, K2 is not even counted here because this vitamin was, I think K2 was discovered, I want to say about, don't quote me on this, but I want to say it was relatively about a decade ago. And it's a cool story, but Weston A. Price, who was a dentist that lived with hunter-gatherer tribes, he basically devoted his life to figuring out what caused tooth decay. And he was a dentist, and he basically went around the world living with different hunter-gatherer tribes all around the world. And he noticed that they were getting fat-soluble vitamins, right? So your A, your D, your K, and your E. And he noticed they were getting an abundance of this, but K2 wasn't yet discovered, and he didn't know what it was. He had labs, he had machines that he was running through his lab to know that there was this component they were having in their diet, but there was no stated vitamin for this thing. So he called it Activator X. And it was later on that it was discovered through Chris Masterjohn as a PhD. If you don't know Chris, follow him. Very brilliant mind in the space. But he was the one that connected the dots, and he believes that Activator X was K2. And so K2 you get from cod liver oil, you get from butter, you get from cheese, you get from dairy, and you can get from MU oil, you get from organs, you get from egg yolks. And then there's some plant-based versions of K2 as well. Mostly sauerkraut and other fermented foods like natto. Natto is this fermented soybean. It's very hard to get here in the States. I've never actually tried it. It's something that I do want to try just because I'm curious for it. But I'm not a crazy fan of having soy in my diet, even if it's fermented for the most part. Although occasionally I will have some miso here and there that I make at home, but not a big fan. But the K2 definitely is really important, and you can get enough K2 in an animal-based diet. As a matter of fact, you cannot get enough K2 on a plant-based diet. It's impossible. So you can get high vitamin butter oil. You can make sure you're having lots of ghee or butter, and MU oil, which is something that I just recently learned about, is the highest food in vitamin K2. And it's probably something I'm going to add to the stack because it also has vitamin E. It probably would allow me to get all the vitamin E that I need as well. And it's a great fat. So, and it's got the vitamins in there. And I'll still continue taking the cod liver oil because it gives me plenty of vitamin D and vitamin A. And again, these are not from pills, guys, right? These are not taking any pills or vitamins here other than we'll talk about here, which is calcium. Because I am taking bone marrow, since eating bone marrow is quite difficult. I do take a bone marrow supplement to get my calcium. And again, that's from an animal, right? So, and I can't do much dairy. The other forms of calcium, as you can see here, is milk and cheese and yogurt. Can't do any of those things. Tofu, don't want in my diet. Spinach, I can probably eat spinach and be fine with it. But it's not, I don't want spinach for the calcium. If I were to eat it, it would be mostly for, I think, the manganese, likely, which I can get from spinach. I believe it doesn't mention spinach here, but I think I can get manganese from spinach. And I probably want to look at spinach for the vitamin K as well. Then, as you can see here, all my other minerals are great. I got plenty of minerals. The only other one that's short here, like I said, is the manganese. which you can also get from nuts. I probably got this manganese from coffee since I do drink coffee, and I did have some liver. But again, if I eat more liver, I probably can get more. So I probably want to have more than just 1 ounce a day of liver. I probably want to start upping my liver intake so I can get my folate up and I can get my manganese up. Um, and then zinc. Zinc is I didn't get as much zinc as I'd like, but again, I'll get more by having beef. I didn't really have beef yesterday, which is something that I do eat very often. And oysters. I love oysters, and I'm sure that I will through by eating oysters, I'll probably get way more zinc that I need that can make up for the week. Which is something interesting to note, right? Like you don't need to hit your vitamin intake every day or your nutrient intake every day if you're making up for it on other days, because they should stay in your blood relatively long. So, you if you're not getting all your nutrients here, like for instance, you can have 6 to 7 ounces or 8 ounces of liver in one day, and it'll make up for everything you need for the week, even if you're a little bit short. So, again, that's stuff that I learned from Chris Masterjohn. I would recommend following him, but that is the um, that is the gist of it. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop my screen here. I hope you found this video useful. As you can see, on an animal-based diet. Um, One thing I didn't talk about was vitamin C. That's another one that you do want to. I think having fruit in the diet is good, especially for the vitamin C, because you won't lack in it. And I also think that you still want carbohydrates in the diet. I'm not crazy about doing zero carbohydrates or getting your carbohydrates from glucogenesis. I think the body can do it. The body's adapted to do that, but it's not a state that you always want to be in. Most people I know who are on keto long term tend to get health issues over time. And it's a great state to ebb and flow out of and continue to flex. But it's not something that I would recommend that you're on all the time. Um, you know, so vitamin C, definitely want to include fruit. And I think that's pretty much it for today's live. I wanted to go over that. Can't wait for the book. Book's almost done. We got the cover designed. We got all the chapters done except the last one, which the content's written. It just needs to go through some editing. So I'm excited about that. If you do want to, let me see here. Do I have a link for it? Yeah, I do. If you do want to sign up for the email list to get a copy of the book, you can put this link right in there. And the book that I'm coming out with, The Superhuman Lifestyle, is going to hopefully be released within the next, definitely before the end of the year. Let's just leave it at that. So if you want to sign up for the ebook when it comes out, go to this link here and you can get it. I'm gonna also just post this in the comment section as well. That way, if it doesn't show, you got it here. But that is it for today, folks. If you, as I said earlier, if you are suffering from gut issues, autoimmunity, a lot of inflammation, you might want to experiment with an animal-based diet. And even if you're not crazy gung-ho about just eating meat and fruit and some honey, and you want to have a little bit more plants, it's still a really good idea, I think, to eliminate plants for some time. Even fruit if you want, and just eat meat and fat for some time and then start introducing plants very slowly, gradually, and carefully, because it's going to resensitize you, and you're going to learn to really understand how foods affect you better. I do believe that animal meat and fat were the foods that our ancestors thrived on, and plant foods are foods that we ate. I do agree that humans have always been omnivorous, but I believe that plant foods were either used more as medicine or as fallback foods when there wasn't when there couldn't be on a hunt and they needed to eat some calories and get some things in. I find that very interesting and fascinating. But again, you might want to do an experiment and see if removing these foods helps you. Lowers inflammation, and then as you start introducing them again, you might realize how these foods affect you on a different scale that you weren't really aware of before. And again, don't be afraid of fiber. Don't be afraid of not having vegetables. It's okay. It might actually help you. And yeah, that's it for today. So hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any other questions, leave me a comment below. I'll be happy to respond, and go kick some ass. So, all right, take care. Peace.